Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are across the world. Welcome to yet another of our weekly challenges for 2022 Swift Otter Challenge to become Magento certified. So as always, the on weeks, if you will, are a conversation, motivation, getting your study technique set and they're going in the right direction. And then the off weeks are are study groups. And I've heard such really positive feedback about these study groups, and I could not be more excited to join, to have done that this year, and certainly that's going to continue in subsequent years. And again, those study groups, a couple of things. Actually, I'll throw this out there real quick. First, yes, they are not recorded. I've gotten a lot of questions about that, but the reason, again, that they're not recorded is we want participation. We want you to be there. And the problem is, and I get this, those that have like a meeting scheduled, but that's where we're also trying to give as much advance notice and warning as possible, that you can try to clear a schedule just to make it to this event in any way possible, because that's how you are going to learn and that's how you're going to grow. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is the more people we can get in there to join, the better, the more vibrant those conversations are. So please block off your calendar for next Friday at this time is our last scheduled study group. We can, depending on how stuff goes and depending on the availability and the willingness of those who are leading it, we could always, if we needed to, push it to one more week if there feels like there's some unfinished business there. But otherwise, that this is going to be the last week. So make sure you join in on that. Welcome. Every one of you who's here, welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. We're going to have a great conversation today. Dan in our Slack group, swiftotter.com/Slack, he said, what's the topic of today? And I said, failure. So unfortunately, it's a topic I think we need to talk about, but it's going to be a good topic to discuss. Before we do, I'd like to, as always, jump in and see how everybody's doing this morning. So start by introducing yourself. Just drop a comment in there. Usually comes with your name, and say where you are and maybe, I don't know, maybe what the weather's like in your space of the world. I'm here in Kansas City. So basically, if you were to draw like an X through the middle of the United States, you would pretty close that center X would pretty close to be right near Kansas City. I understand it's in that the centermost place of the United States is somewhere in northern Kansas. So that would be within 2 or 3 hours of driving distance from here. So we got a lot of rain this morning, which was about 10 degrees cooler than we would have gotten a whole bunch of snow, well, at least a reasonable amount of snow. But we're basically in spring. Let's see here. It's March 18th. Spring is what, 3 days away, 2 or 3 days away. So, snow at this time of the year is getting a little bit late for my preference, but hey, what can I say about that kind of stuff? Good to see you, Dan. Welcome. Come on in. More black bean juice. Yep, that's probably what I need. Mateus from Buenos Aires. Very good. That's on the other side of the world, and you're starting to working toward your fall. Excellent. Yes, I do want to call out Dan real quick here before we continue our conversation. I had a great conversation yesterday with him. He's was working through a really tough challenge with two-factor authentication, and it was one of those things. It's like, are we really serious? Like from Magento's perspective, we shouldn't have to actually be dealing with this type of an issue. Well, it was an issue, and maybe I'm hopeful he'll be able to take some time and write up exactly what he did, and maybe even throw in a module and maybe distribute it. I might be asking a little bit much of him there. We'll see, depending on his time. But it's the reason I call him out there is he had an absolute go-getter. He was going to fix this. And according to like we talk about in the book, sometimes you need someone just to verify or validate what you're doing. And that's what he did. We had a great conversation yesterday, and he was working through it. And so just as an encouragement to you all, there might be those really difficult bugs. It's like, how do I fix this? Well, come up with a plan and then talk to somebody. That will help you get through that really well. So let's jump in and continue on here. So make sure you have, there we go, swiftotter.com/challenge. Make sure you have signed up here, we're giving away not only a free t-shirt to the top 60 scoring participants. And that looks really terrible back there, the way that renders out. The top 60 scoring participants, but we're also giving 2 pairs of the nicest Bose headphones out there. Like I always say, I have to call this out because these are the headphones I use all day, every day. Like, look at this. They're wired. I don't know how many years old. I keep replacing these ear pad things, keep falling off. I replace them every, I don't know, probably about once a year. And it's they keep working. So if a pair of junk headphones like this last me a long time, I'm confident those nicest Bose headphones will last even longer, sound even better, be more comfortable. Yeah. So you're 2 of you who achieve certification through this are gonna love those headphones. Did the sound just get better? That's funny. I don't know why that would be. All right. So here is a really important message for all of you. SwiftAuto.com/support Ukraine. Today, and today only, we are doing something that I've never ever done before. And I know this is going to sound funny. Well, this is funny. Well, let me just see something here. Are we? Check 1, 2. Well, let me just see here. Properties. It's pulling Scarlet. That's weird. Yeah, I'm pulling it from the. Let's see here. Just a sec. Yeah, that's really weird. Huh. I don't know why it would be pulling from both of those. Anyways, well, I don't know. Is the sound okay right now? Actually, let me just scrape on that headphone mic. See, there's something magical about those headphones. Can you hear it? Oh, you know what? Here is probably what is happening. I messed up my sound preferences. Audio input, default. There we go. I'm sorry. I forgot that I needed to get that changed over there. Now this will sound a lot better. Thank you for calling that out. Okay. All right. Good. Well, I'm glad we got that set with. Thank you. That was something I need to add to my pre-start checklist. So hopefully this sounds a little bit better. No, this large mic is not fake. It's actually going through OBS. It's just not. It was not wired up. So I'm using OBS to restream, and in restream, I think so. I had not configured the settings. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for calling that out. That's good. Okay. So good. Thank you for calling that out. I appreciate that. So anyways, support Ukraine. So today we are doing a thing that we've never done before. Basically, it's 100% of our proceeds that we're selling as far as our certification materials, preparation materials, and as well as the Art of Debugging, e-commerce debugging course. 100% of those are being given to support the Ukraine defense efforts. So to help motivate you to purchase, we're giving a 25% off discount as well. So not only 25% off plus 100% of the profits or of revenue, not profits. 100% of revenue, gross profits, if you will, in accounting terms, there is being given to Ukraine defense efforts. So make sure if you're going to purchase, make sure you do it today. Buy ahead. If you want an easy way to donate to Ukraine, buy 2 or 3 study guides, whatever. Because again, we don't make a penny off of today. In fact, you could say we even lose a little bit of money because I'm giving 100% of proceeds, which means that we obviously have our overhead expenses, etc. But we also have credit card processing fees, which is we use Braintree, so whatever that is, like 3% plus whatever. That's all coming out. We're covering that as well. So there we go. Let's try this if this is a little better. All right. So all of that, we are working to support Ukraine defense efforts. I know there's quite a number of people in the Magento ecosystem that are in Ukraine, have been tremendously affected. A close friend of mine, he's been conscripted and sounds like doing a great job with the defense forces. And then we have another friend, and it's just another person that works with Swift Auto there. And it's just, my heart breaks for them. And I want to do everything I can do to encourage supporting that effort. And again, it's one thing to just say that I do, but it's another thing. We're putting our money behind where our mouth is. And I think that's the most important. So feel free to contribute today to these efforts by purchasing
any product from Swift Otter. The only two exceptions that I want to call out is, number one, the book, a hardcover book you see back here. That is not that money does not go to Ukraine, and for the simple reason is that shipping is ridiculously expensive, and yeah, so that is the one exception. The other thing is we're not doing guarantees or refunds for products purchased today. So that is a slight maybe disadvantage, but we honestly have so few people ever that request a refund or guarantee. I don't think you're going to have a problem there. So continuing on. The other big piece of news for those of you who are looking to get certified, and we're going to talk about those dates in a second, is the Adobe Summit is going on this week. I believe it's this week, and there is a coupon code, Summit 2022. We've had some problems with this, so look in the certification Slack channel to see which one works. There's some people that say it has to be all caps. Some people say it has to be basically every variation, an uppercase S. And this one that's listed on their website, the Adobe Voucher website, is all lowercase. So let's just see what works, what doesn't work there. As always, I'd like to congratulate a few people. I have to make a very special mention. Congratulations to Ajith, to Jay. I have to make a special mention to Edhar. He actually is in Ukraine, and he is the youngest person that I'm aware of to get Magento certified. And not only Magento certified, it's Master Architect. So many congratulations to Edhar for achieving such a great certification. I was actually 15 when I got my A+, and I would venture to say that Master Architect is way harder than A+. So massive congratulations there, as well as Darshit. Very good work to all of you. I feel like we've seen actually more people get certified this year, which is really exciting for me. I'm happy to see that. And then finally, let's talk about a couple of dates. I think you should be able to see that in the background. April 1 is our last full meetup. So basically we have 2 more weeks. Next week is study group, and then the final week is our conclusion for this. And then May 31st, submit your score. So in other words, if you are truly planning to take this test, which I hope every one of you who is watching this webinar, this conversation, I hope you are, make sure to purchase your voucher this week. You are going to get 50% off. 50% off if you purchase your voucher this week. Why not? Just do it. And it lasts for a year. But then go take your test by May 31st. Honestly, my suggestion to you here today, purchase that voucher, go schedule the test for May 1st or something. Hey, Mike, welcome. Come on in. Scheduled for sometime early May, and dedicate consistent study time to get there. And you'll pass. I literally guarantee you'll pass. We're going to talk about failure today and ways to prevent failure, but you're going to pass. And then finally, June 3rd, mark your calendar for this. That is our challenge award ceremony. So we're going to provide a tremendous recognition for those of you that pass this test, and of course, thereafter we'll be taking the orders for the shirts and for those Bose headphones, which made the sound a lot better. So thank you. That was good. Oh, Mike, hey, you're setting a good example for the rest of us. You got your voucher and you're scheduling the expert exam for 325. So everybody, Mike is setting the example. 325, going to take that test, and let's see him pass. So I want to talk about a bit of a sensitive subject now. Failure. I failed a test. What was that? A couple years ago. It was a cloud developer exam, and that was when I was building the cloud developer study guide. I was probably about, if I remember correctly, like halfway through that. I was like, yeah, I think this is pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just take it. I'll pass it. And no, actually, I wasn't halfway. I was closer. I would say a quarter of the way, probably, being generous there. It was probably less than that. I went in there and I got my rear handed to me. Like, I was smoked. Like, I wasn't too far into the test. I'm like, dude, there is no freaking way I can pass this test. So I failed it, of course. I got like a 50%, something like that. And went back, finished the study guide, worked through it, studied, of course, went back, took the test. That second time I took the test, I was like, dude, this is so easy. Like, I don't understand why I did not pass the test last time. I mean, it was, oh, wait. That was because I hadn't studied for it and I thought it was going to be way easier. I mean, hey, look, we're just talking about Apache or Nginx and, some Elasticsearch configuration. I don't even know if Elasticsearch was on the test at that point. MySQL configuration, I'm sure it was. MySQL configuration, it was just so easy. Like, I mean, yeah, like it was a matter of experience. It was a matter of understanding what we were talking about. And I want to talk today about why we fail these tests and ultimately talk about how we can prevent this failure and give us a confidence that as we go into this test, we are not going to fail. Because it's one thing to, especially with the 50% off, it kind of reduces the impact on our wallets. It's like, okay, so normally what's it like $200 or something? Now it's like $100. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, the bigger issue is it's a blow to our morale. Really, is what happens, and I've seen this over and over and over again. People prepare for the test, they go take the test, they fail, and then they don't ever want to take the test again. I mean, they don't say that, but it just never happens. And so my goal is we're going to talk about what causes failure and then how to overcome this. I see two primary reasons for failure. One is easier to overcome than the second. Hey, Raghuver, how are you doing? Good to see you on. Come on in. Welcome. So, here is what I see as far as the reasons for failure. Number one, not adequately prepared. I'm going to spend most of my time on this, as well as distracting test environment, lack of concentration. I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. Mostly, it's about not adequately prepared. I had a conversation with somebody this week about preparing for a test, and we were talking about some aspects of that. And to be frank, in order to pass a test, the expectation is you have to at least achieve the objectives or the requirements set out in the exam preparation guide. The exam preparation guide, you can find it on the Adobe Learning website. It's replicated in all of our study guides, as we see right here. Basically, this is the exam preparation guide. And I will say the new versions of these tests have much less information with which we can go by. The old version had several bullet points in here with questions, and that was really helpful. The new versions of the test don't have that. So I will say that has made test preparation a bit more difficult. But the goal is you have to at least exceed this bar for being able to pass the test. And that bar is whatever the passing grade is on this test, which is usually in the 60s percent. So in other words, you can miss one out of every 3 questions and you're likely going to pass, roughly. So being adequately prepared means that you have to understand what each one of these bullet points is talking about. And the way I look at it is not just knowing what this is talking about. You have to really be an expert. It'd be much better for you to go into a test and take the test and get a 90% than to go into the test thinking you're going to get a 90% and you get a 50%. And that's mostly likely because you didn't adequately prepare. Now, I will say the one exception to this is, and I've done this myself, is I feel like I study a little bit, maybe take 4 hours or something like that, something minimal. And I go into the test saying, I'm not going to pass this test, but I'm using this as a practice test. And now that we have the 50% off vouchers, go buy yourself 2 vouchers at 50% off each. And then you can have 2 takes at the test. And so the first take is your practice test and your second take is your legit test. If you pass the practice test, well, wonderful. Congratulations. You just saved yourself several weeks or months to study. So I guess in that case, you could say a mindset does make a difference. We can come in and say, okay, I'm going to fail this first test, but it's kind of a way to test the water, see what's going on. How difficult is this test? And maybe if I pass it, wonderful. If I don't, that's no problem. I'm going to invest the time to study and prepare there. If you do pass the first time, and that means you are enough of an expert in order that you understand these concepts. So that is a good thing. So here's the challenge is you want to, when we come across some of these objectives like this. So for example, using native tools, and this is on Business Practitioner, to manage the order lifecycle, it's like, okay, there's one aspect we could say, okay, what tools are there? Well, we could creating an invoice. In Adobe Commerce, that would be RMA functionality, or the order life cycle. Adding attributes to the RMA. Like we could go through a list of what features are available here. But at the end of the day, that's not going to help us pass the test because these tests are about testing experience. And experience is not about reading a list of bullet points on sales sheets. Experience is about, okay, I have actually worked in this. So native tools, like what would that be? For example, how creating what does the packing list look like? What is available on a packing list? How do you create a packing list, or how do you create a packing list for several orders at a time? What entity does that packing list represent? Is it an invoice? Is it a shipment? Uh, how do you uh, uh, how do you change the order status? What is the order status in on an order? Um, how would you refund? How would you refund or return products to stock versus just not returning them to stock? For like if a product customer sees something that was damaged and it was just wasn't worth it for that the money for them to ship it back to you, like how would you facilitate that type of a difference? What's the difference between clicking on create credit memo in on the order screen versus an invoice screen? So if, from a business practitioner standpoint, and we could talk about on the developer side, there is a massive world of difference between points on a sales sheet again versus the experience of, okay, I've actually done this, I've worked through this, and these are things that I understand. So let's say you're just getting into business practitioner or professional developer, expert, whatever your plan on taking. Now, if you're just getting into it, take professional developer. Don't even try for expert developer. Well, it comes down to getting in there, doing a deep dive. And that's what I'm going to be talking about here in the next few minutes. I want to make sure you are adequately prepared to pass this test. One thing before I jump into that, I also want to quickly call out is your commitment demonstrated through your time availability. I think I said that correctly. So you have to block off this time every single day in order for you to make progress. And I'll be honest, I've talked about the courses, I've had struggles getting those finished, and it's only once I've begun blocking off specific amounts of time every day of the week, including most basically all my day Saturday, is when I've started making significant progress. I've been working my Saturdays since for quite a few months now, working on these courses, and as many as like if I can in the days, but I have not made that significant progress that I'm currently making right now until I actually blocked off time every single day. So if that's 15 minutes, great. That's 15 minutes. Do it. Just make sure that nothing happens at 15 minutes. So here is my proposal to you. Number one, take this practice test very seriously. When I mean that, I mean take it seriously. So you take a practice test, make sure that you understand that what's coming out of that practice test is pretty accurate. Uh, you could even discount it a little bit. So if the practice test says if you get a 70% chance on the practice test, 70% score on the practice test, discount it to 60%. Say, okay, I'm going to apply this rating factor across all the objectives, and now I know where I need to study a little bit more. Remember, Adobe also has a practice test for most of the newer exams as well. So feel free to run through that. Obviously, as you do that, and then if you look at the answers, the practice test on any practice test becomes worthless. So Adobe has practice tests, we have our practice tests, and those are really good indication that you are to understand where your weaknesses are. And I think the biggest thing that I see again over and over is you want to study everything. There's things that are going to seem scary. There's things that just you don't understand. To be honest, page builder for me, I'm about to approach that section here in the next couple days on the expert developer test. That seems scary. I don't know much about page builder and modifications, that sort of thing. Great. Well, that just means I need to dig into this. We'll talk about what does it mean to dig into this. So, we have to also become the expert. Again, every one of these points is not just a matter of high level. I mean, we're talking about drilling as deep as you possibly can. You have to do that in order to pass the test. Leave no stone unturned. Um, it again, what I say in this third bullet point here: deep dive, then zoom out. This is absolutely critical. I remember 10 years ago when I was taking my first Adobe exams, I literally wrote the study guide for myself. And that's how I have proceeded to take and pass these exams. I write the study guide myself. Now, where I've been able to utilize some other help for those study guide updates lately, but so full disclosure there. But I I deep dive in. I step line by line by line through this code, and that's honestly how I become really comfortable starting out in Magento 1 development. Very comfortable with it because I was very familiar with where each one of these pieces were going. Now, I do have to say, I don't know if Lee Saferite is listening. He was a huge influence on me at the beginning. Uh, he was constantly pointing me, here's this in the code, and here's that in the code, and here's how this works in the code. This is how this all works together. And again, as I said, writing a 1 or 2 sentence story about each one of these is not enough. It is not going to help you pass. Maybe for professional, maybe, but that's no guarantee there. And again, it comes back to the discipline of focusing on what you are at least familiar with. Another thing, take notes. Take a lot of notes. Write your own cheat sheet. Okay, I think this is important. If I was writing the test, I would put this on the test. So I'm going to write a note about this, and I'm going to review this information before I go and take the test. These notes help you internalize what you're looking at. Taking the notes also helps you as you go into a deep dive. And we have a couple of these. Well, we have quite a few of these on the current expert developer course, and there's going to be a few less of them on the new course. These deep dives, as you're going through line by line, take notes. Oh, I learned this about this particular section. Wow, this is how these pieces fit together. Well, that's fascinating. I did not know that feature existed. So as you're going through them, take those notes, and then you'll be able to have, again, the highlights of what you noticed as you were working through the code. Notes are absolutely critical. And here's another thing. Challenge everything you read. And to be honest, challenge everything that I have to say. Approach what you read online with a element of distrust. I'm not going to name names, but there is quite a few websites out there with developer related material that might get the job done, but it's one of the worst ways you can do in order to get the job done. So challenge it. Treat what I'm saying as literally being false and focus and prove it to yourself. Okay, what Joseph is saying here, is that right or is that wrong? And if it's right, great, let's write it down. If it's wrong, let's see what is correct and then DM me or post it to me. We'll change it. I want to get that straightened out. The second thing is so this other aspect is distractions on the day of taking the test. I've also heard of a number of people, not as many, failing the test because they were, they just got off a work emergency and their test was scheduled. That's why I strongly recommend taking the test in the morning. So take the test first thing in the morning, your time, block off the whole morning, or just block off the morning or take it mid-morning, whatever, if you want to kind of do some final review on that test. And I think that's for me the best way that I found to make sure my mind is in the right mode for approaching the test. There was one other thing I had not written down that I forgot what that was. I'll probably remember it here in a minute or two. Yes, Mike said he was very skeptical of the info on the web. Absolutely. DevDocs is one of those is I find generally a really good resource. Stack Overflow or Magento Stack Overflow, in my opinion, is not great anymore. I do hope that our Slack channel, our Magento Slack channel, is excellent, and I unfortunately have not had as much time as I wanted to lately to spend in there, but I feel like there's some really good conversation that happens there. So that is a great place to ask questions. Dan, to answer your question, my friend, here on the Business Practitioner, test, we can scroll down and there is a start your practice test. So there is a link right there to for your practice test. So so that was what I wanted to talk about is failure. And actually, that's what I wanted to say. A number of people, once they have failed the test, uh, a number of people have told me, "Oh yes, I know I was weak in that area," and I get that. Yeah, you might be weak, but by saying that, that implies to me that they knew they were weak in that area going into the test. And that's not a good position to be in. You want to make sure that your weak areas have now become your strong areas. In fact, you want to focus more time on those weak areas than you spend studying on those areas that you feel like you're really strong. Yeah. So that's what I recommend. Just make sure that you focus on those weak areas. It's not going to seem like fun. It's going to seem difficult, but at the end of the day, you'll be really glad that you did. Dan, yeah, that's a great comment. Correlate every external source with the dev docs. I find, generally speaking, the dev docs are a good resource for studying, understanding, and ultimately, one other thing to note is the dev docs are often a source of inspiration for test questions. I do know that. So there, as you read through the dev docs, you see with these little call outs. Those call outs can be really important to look at and remember and understand. And that's why in our courses we link constantly back to dev docs. So, and again, that's kind of the challenge. Okay, you can sit there and read through all the dev docs. It's still not the practical experience. So my goal with our courses and material is to boil down dev docs into what's most important, as well as provide an injection of practical knowledge and experience in there, which gets you going towards passing the test as quickly as possible. All right, so let's go over and take a look at some test questions. I've been doing this every week, and I think last 2 weeks ago, I had trouble getting through this in time for uh, by the time we were done. So I'm done a little earlier than I planned on being here. So we'll take I don't know, 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and we'll run through some test questions. Feel free to drop your answers in the chat comments. I've not studied for any of this stuff. So drop your answers in the test comments or in the comments here. And I want to do what we can do to see if we can answer these questions correctly. But also, again, looking at these questions from a perspective of what can we learn so that as you go take the test, you are absolutely as equipped as possible for achieving this certification. Mike, good question. Like watching videos while working out. Question on video sources. I think it'd be a little difficult to watch like technical videos, but maybe it's possible. One thing to note is VNI Cop's Mage 2 TV. It's pretty advanced, pretty deep stuff, but if you can actually follow along in while working out, then I think that would be a great source right there. Okay, so let's jump over. I guess first, is there any other final questions before we go look at these some practice test questions? If not, all right, let's go over and jump into this. I guess one thing I will say is how many of you are looking, well, in the comments right now, are looking to pass business practitioner? Because if there is none who are looking to pass business practitioner, then we will run over to one of the expert developer tests. In the meantime, before I see any answers, we'll just run through a couple questions there, and then we can take a look at the other. So, and one thing to call out is this is the Adobe Vouchers. So I'm going to drop this in the chat here. This is the link I just dropped in the chat. I'm going to show it up here. That's the path in order to go purchase vouchers. So with that Summit 2022 code, you can get 50% off, and that's a great deal. So here we go. Cool. All right. Let's jump in to some of these questions. Now, this is an interesting one. There were a couple. Well, there is an objective on this business practitioner talking about this. To be really frank, I don't remember a question like this on the real test. So I'm not 100% sure if I just like can't remember, I missed it, or whether it was actually not present or what, that sort of thing. So one of the objectives is talk about given a mock-up. And so that's what this practice test question is. So the merchant running Adobe Commerce for their charity website considers modifying their top menu. They want to include non-category menu items and have up to 4 levels of sub items on top level items, sub items on top level items for both categories and non-categories. They provide a mock-up and asks which parts require customization. All right. Well, this is a good question because it's well, there's a lot of meat to the question as well as it's yeah, we have to understand what is available in Magento. So they want to include non-category menu items. All right. So this non-category menu item and have up to 4 levels of sub items on top level categories. So to my memory, including a non-category menu item is not available out of the box. That requires customization. The 4 levels of sub items on top level items for both categories and non-categories. So this is Adobe Commerce. So this CMS page is, to my knowledge, is available in Adobe Commerce. It is not available in open source. So that's where the Adobe Commerce designation becomes very helpful on this. But the link to the native contact form, I do not believe it is available natively. So categories 2 to 4 nested, that's out of the box. Link to charity page on Patreon. So these two things I think require customization. Let's see what the options are. Okay, which 2 areas? Okay, so we called out 2. So let's see what 2 we're requiring here. So that's a positive sign right there. Contact form requires customization. Is not possible to include that because there's no. Okay, it's correspondent. Yep, I would say that. Patreon link requires native features don't allow pointing links. Okay, different domains. Yeah, this is okay. CMS page nesting only categories. Nope, that is not correct. Item positions require customization. Non-category. Nope. I would say this is. I would say this is the answer I'm going to select for this. For those very reasons. All right. Here's another good question. A merchant running Adobe Commerce Store wants to use the gift card registry native feature. They already have set enable gift registry in the configuration to yes and configured available gift registry types. They expected a search feature to appear so people can find the public gift registries they want to buy products from. Nothing like that appeared anywhere. They wonder what they're missing. Okay. Widget with gift registry search has to be created and attached to pages on which the merchant wants to see the search feature. There's no search feature for gift registries. They can only be shared via email, etc. The merchant forgot to set enable search field like that. Ooh, boy. That's a hard one. It's between B and C on this one. I think. That's tough. I do not believe there is a gift registry search widget. I could be wrong there. The merchant forgot to set the enable search. Boy, is that tough. Oh man, I think I'm going to go with B, but that's just as likely to be wrong. So that was a difficult one. And ultimately, in that case, I would flag it. I would flag that page because I'm going to come back to it and review it later. All right. Merchant wants to collect the gender detail of customers who are registering on their Magento open source site. How can this be implemented? Oh, GDPR problem here. That's probably why this question is on the practice test. Yeah, that would be difficult. Okay, so is it Adobe Commerce feature can be enabled under customer configuration? Create a new customer attribute. Well, I thought there was already a customer attribute. You collect gender details. How can this be implemented in Magento open source? So there is. Well, that's interesting. To my recollection, there already is a gender attribute in open source. So it is not an Adobe Commerce only feature, and I don't think they need to create a new one. So I guess that kind of eliminates or brings it down to this. Again, this is a difficult one. I might flag this one as well, but I think it's B. All right, 2 more questions, and then we'll jump over to a developer practice test. Merchant is running an e-commerce website using native Adobe Commerce, wants to offer a discount with a first purchase. What 2 configurations are required to implement this? Customer group or tier pricing, customer group, cart price rule, and customer segment. All right. So that will be a cart price rule and a customer segment. Now, the question you're probably going to ask, oh, Matthias, thank you. There is a required search widget that needs to be added to pages. Good point. Thank you. That is a great point. Appreciate that. So the question on the answer on this previous question, I'll leave mine as the wrong one because I marked it as wrong. Oops, back one more. Is there is a widget. So interesting. Good point. Thank you for calling that out. Okay, so on this one, what's tricky here is that cart price rules do work with customer segments. There is just not a customer segment selection box. It is part of the conditions. So based off of that, those are the two things that are required there. So finally, there was an easy one. Merchant wants to schedule a product import at 2 a.m. each day. What's the correct process for achieving this with native features in the Adobe Commerce admin panel? Notice we have Adobe Commerce and native features. So you can select a pre-configured data import profile. This harks back to Magento 1 days that is not existent anymore. We have created data import profile. That doesn't exist at a scheduled import. There is scheduled import in Adobe Commerce, and we can specify all the details, frequency of daily, start time, et cetera, et cetera. One thing to keep in mind there in real life would be UTC time, depending on how that works. All right. In the checkout page, a merchant wants tax to display above the discount in the order summary area. So that would be we have discount, then we have tax. What would the business practitioner recommend? Carefully consider the impact of this configuration because putting tax above discount may change the tax calculation. No, it would not. You would have to change that in store configuration to include discounts. It can be configured in the checkout total sort order. All right. So those are a few questions there. Let's jump over into here we go, into an expert developer test. And we'll answer a few questions from there. There we go. Start your practice test. Okay, I'm going to skip through the first few questions. We've worked on those on previous weeks. You might hear a little bit of sound in the background, and that is because I do have a family, and my children are awake and are very ready and very excited to see the day. So that is the reason for some clunking and some crashing in the background. I assure you everyone is just fine. Okay, let's jump up to question 10. All right. Actually, let's do 20 just to make sure. I don't think we got this. I know we didn't got this far. All right. So for the rest of you that stuck with me as we are talking about questions, we talked about a few business practitioner questions. And Dan said, get them to help you. Yeah, that would be nice. I could probably benefit from as much help as we can get. All right. So, well, hey, look, Edhar, right? I think that was his name from where was that? Ukraine. He 15 years old, got the master architect. So that's impressive. He'll be a great help to his dad there. All right. So an Adobe Commerce developer is assisting a junior developer on the team. The junior developer is trying to add an additional attribute to select for a product collection for a block that extends, etc. Has created a plugin. Oh, that actually seems a little bit familiar. Yeah, we already worked on that one. So let's come up to 30. A developer added a custom column called ERP status to the orders grid. This column shows the order status to the merchant's ERP. And the merchant asks for this column to have a drop-down filter. How would an Adobe Commerce filter developer implement this filter? There we go. Let's see. So we have 4 options, and boy, these are tough, especially if you're taking the test on a laptop, which you probably are. Like, okay, I got to scroll back and forth to try to figure the answer. So I don't have any good advice for you there. It's just going to take some time to figure this out. All right. So again, the biggest help for me is to eliminate as quickly as possible, eliminate stuff that you know is emphatically wrong. So add a custom class, extending data collection, override get filter options, to retrieve the order status, add the following code to the module's order grid. I don't think that is correct. Well, let me actually just look through this. What do I think is actually correct? Because I know we have a column name, we have our component, we have a select filter, and we have options that come from this. So based off of this, we have this looks correct right here. So basically, we're going to implement a custom class that implements, or build a custom class that implements option source interface. I think that's the right interface. We implement the two option array. That's correct. Add the following logic in here. So this seems accurate, and I don't see any additional other details there that would prevent that from being accurate. So finally, we have add the status options as an array in the settings. I don't think. I think this is incorrect. For based off of the options note, I believe you can pass it in. I don't remember the actual key in this file or in this structure to be able to specify to hard code in options. Either way, that would be a bad idea to do that. So we would want to load it from the database. Yeah. So it should not be either way. It should not be loaded. Access type array. Oh, well, there you go. Right there. That type array that gives it away. That's incorrect. So again, this is where being really careful can make a big difference. There is a way to do this. I don't remember off the top of my head the nomenclature for that. There is a way to do this, but as we see right here, type is array. I could have selected that because, or at least had a challenge in my mind as to whether this is correct or not. But by getting in there, unless this is a straight up typo, which it could have been, and ultimately, I think this whole structure looks out of whack to me. So that's where I'm going to go with that option. Option B there. Extended orders. Module has an API, web API defined in web API.xml. Service class has a const admin resource set to this. Given that the resource does not imply this, what resources would be needed to access the service? Okay, the service class. Well, to the best extent of my knowledge, this admin resource has absolutely nothing to do with this. This is not a controller. And by the way, just a little mention here. I've been working on some code that we've taken over a project and working through that code, and it is amazing to see how many times in this project, in a very large module in this project, there are controllers that are being used actually to create a raw response that is returning raw response that is returning JSON, when ultimately it could be using the API for faster response times. So always use the API. And I basically say this. I think I can say this almost with a blanket statement. If you're using the API, or if you're returning JSON, use an API, period. Outside of that, in my opinion, it's a code smell. So that's just me. So in this case, my vendor extended order edit is that. That'll be the answer. Final one here. We'll take a look here. Merchant requires a new export option for the order grid. They want to export orders and their total paid amount in a tab separated TXT file in order to reconcile this information with their bank accounts. How would a commerce developer achieve this? Okay. So we have several options. Create a controller, which inherits grid to CSV class. Add a new export option to the export button node within sales order grid. This is a little bit outside my wheelhouse, to be really honest. Override the execute method. This doesn't sound right. But I think I see this answer in each one of these. So based off of that, it's going to be some derivative. So I'm coming into this one. I have no idea, to be really honest. Add a new export option to the export button node within there, pointing to a custom controller, grid to TXT controller. Okay. Create a new converter to TXT and add the needed logic. Call get. Okay. And then finally add a new export option. This seems like, and that's one thing to look at is for similarities with the name grid to TXT. So these, which inherits, points to a custom. Boy, To be really honest, I don't know. Create a new converter class, add a new virtual type, specifying this. This is one I do not have an idea on. So in this case, I would flag it. I'm going to select an answer. I have no idea which answer to select, and I'm just going to move on, come back later and spend 5 or 10 minutes even thinking about this one question, seeing what we can do to figure out what's going on here. Cool. All right. Well, I hope this helps you. Again, I want to give you confidence. If you don't have confidence, it could be that you're just nervous about taking the test, or you're nervous about the content that you will see on the test. Being nervous about taking the test is one thing. It's somewhat inevitable. It's my heart gets going a little faster when I'm about to take the test. That's normal. Being nervous about the content on the test is completely avoidable. And it's something that we can do without by proper preparation. I do not want to see any of you fail. I want to see all of you be incredibly successful. And this is why we are doing this certification challenge, to boost your career, to help you be as successful as absolutely possible in this world. Any final questions before we sign off here today? Any questions? Happy to do my best to answer those questions. And finally, just to remind you, it is very important to understand and to remember that we are offering this Ukraine deal. So I'm going to pull this up for a final reminder here. Support Ukraine, to support yourself, 25% off to give to Ukraine. So, hey, Garby, it's good to see you on here. Yes, we actually talked about business practitioner a little bit ago. So that is, we went through some questions for business practitioner, et cetera. So yeah, so please make sure if you have anything that you want to purchase from Swift Otter, make sure to do that today. 100% of the proceeds, the dollar amount that you pay to us, that dollar amount is being given directly to Ukraine, supporting Ukraine defense efforts. So please make sure that you contribute there as much as you possibly can. So, and you benefit, of course, from that as well. And 25% off. So you cannot lose doing something like that today. So anyways, thank you for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure spending this past 50 some minutes with you. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and looking forward to our study groups here next Friday. So do not miss those study groups. Make sure to mark those on your calendar. Take care.